I always laugh a little when I tell this story, because people think a proposal just magically happens. Like one day he wakes up with a ring and a vision. But the truth is that a man doesn't propose because you pressure him. He proposes because you become a woman he can't imagine losing. And that distinction is everything. So let me take you back to the exact moment things shifted for me. The moment where I realized I didn't need to convince anyone of my worth, I just had to stand in it. The hook, the power, the spark. It happened the night I walked into that rooftop lounge wearing a silk champagne slip dress that hugged my body like it had been custom gloved to my skin. Hair pinned up in that effortless. Who is she way? City lights reflecting on the glass behind me like a crown. And the second he saw me, I swear time slowed. Not because of the dress, but because of the energy I had settled into. That calm inner knowing that I was the prize, and the room would respond accordingly. I didn't demand his attention. I didn't chase it. I simply occupied my own space with this softness wrapped around steel. This quiet, delicious confidence that said, I choose my life intentionally. And anyone who wants to be part of it better come correct. And that's the energy I need you to feel right now as I walk you through my exact script. Not a manipulative script. Not a hostage-style ultimatum. But a script of self-possession so magnetic it pulls commitment out of a man like breath from his lungs. Because before I ever said a word, before there was any conversation about future or titles or rings, I centered myself in the truth that I wasn't auditioning for his life, he was auditioning for our life. And that shift in perspective isn't loud. It isn't aggressive. It isn't dramatic. It's simply the moment a woman steps into her power so fully that everything around her rearranges to match it. I sat across from him that night, crossing my legs slowly, looking at him with that soft, dominant smile, the one that's half teasing, half knowing, and entirely regal. And I could feel him leaning in before he physically moved. Like his whole body was magnetized. I wasn't performing. I wasn't following any dating rulebook nonsense. I was genuinely present, genuinely grounded, genuinely unattached to outcomes because I already knew my value independent of his decisions. And listen, men feel that. They feel when you're needing versus choosing. When you're waiting for them to validate you versus when you're already validated and simply deciding if they fit the life you're building. So while we talked about our days, our passions, our stupid little anecdotes, I let myself exist in this warm, feminine, open, receptive energy, but with boundaries so elegant they didn't need to be spoken. And that's the part most women miss. You don't inspire a man to propose by overfunctioning or overgiving or trying to prove your wife material. You inspire him by being so aligned with your standards that he rises instinctively. At one point, he reached for my hand and said, I've never met anyone like you. And I smiled, not from ego, but from truth, because I had spent months becoming a woman who could say thank you to that with full embodiment. I didn't flinch. I didn't giggle detractively. I didn't shrink. I took the compliment like it belonged to me. And that was the beginning, not the proposal. Not even the conversation, but the beginning of him seeing me through the lens of a future. Because I saw myself that way first. If you're feeling this so far, by the way, go ahead and subscribe. Because this channel is where we turn our glow, our boundaries, and our worth into a lifestyle, not a performance. And trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next in the story. The turning point, the moment where everything crystallized, didn't happen during some dramatic fight or teary confession. It happened during one of the calmest afternoons of my life. The kind where you're just moving through the world with soft music playing in the background and a candle burning that smells like sandalwood and something expensive. And he walked in to find me journaling with my legs tucked under me on the couch, wrapped in a cashmere throw, looking less like a woman waiting for commitment and more like a woman who already lived in her own personal sanctuary. He sat next to me, kissed my shoulder, and asked what I was writing. And instead of dodging, instead of pretending, instead of making myself small, I told him the truth. I was writing about the life I wanted, not with pressure, not with entitlement, just with clarity, I told him I had reached a place in my life where partnership needed to be intentional, where my future mattered, where I was building something that couldn't be casual or undefined. And I said it with a softness that didn't apologize and a warmth that didn't demand. This is the part of the script most women fear. The boundary delivered with grace. You don't inspire proposal through panic. You inspire it through feminine certainty. I said, I know what I want, and am not afraid of wanting it. But I also know I don't control your timeline, your process, or your choices. All I can do is honor mine. And the air changed, not in a threatening way, but in an anchoring way. Like he suddenly felt the weight of my self-respect, the weight of my vision, the weight of the woman in front of him who wasn't trying to manipulate him into commitment, but also wasn't willing to orbit endlessly around uncertainty. I didn't ask him where he stood. I didn't interrogate. I didn't plead. I simply allowed silence to exist. A feminine silence that communicates volumes. This is who I am. This is what I need. And I trust myself enough to not abandon it. And the beauty of that moment is he reached for me. Not from fear, not from pressure, but from understanding. He said, I've been thinking about the future too. And there was a vulnerability in his voice. Not the performative kind, but the real kind. The kind that comes when a man realizes he might lose something priceless if he doesn't step up. Do you see the difference? I wasn't trapping him. I was showing him the doorway and allowing him to decide if he wanted to walk through it. If he chose to stay on the other side, I would have walked away lovingly, gracefully, fully aligned with my worth. And men feel that freedom that you are with them because you choose them, not because you need them. After that conversation, I noticed him shifting in small, beautiful ways, asking more questions about my long-term plans, noticing my preferences, being more intentional with his presence. That's how masculine energy responds to feminine clarity with movement. And trust me, if he doesn't move, that tells you everything you need to know. But this one did. This one leaned in. This one stepped up. And if you're feeling your power rising while listening to this, drop a comment with your biggest takeaway so far. Because I swear, once you integrate this energy, your entire dating world transforms into something aligned, elegant, and deeply rewarding. The day he finally knelt, the day everything we had been building moved from quiet intention into undeniable reality, didn't arrive with fireworks or orchestral music, or any of the cinematic cues you assume will announce your life changing. It came wrapped in the serene, almost sacred softness that made me feel like the universe was exhaling with me. He had told me earlier in the week that he wanted to take me somewhere special, but he said it with that understated masculinity he has. The kind that doesn't oversell, doesn't hype, doesn't perform, it just states, simply and confidently, I've planned something for us. I remember getting ready that evening with a calm I didn't expect, slipping into a long black dress that draped over my body like liquid midnight, doing my makeup slowly, intentionally, almost ceremonially, as if some part of me already sensed the shift that was coming. When he picked me up, he paused in the doorway for a heartbeat, looking at me with that soft, reverent awe that has nothing to do with the dress and everything to do with the woman. I had become a woman who didn't beg for clarity, didn't shrink herself, didn't trade her standards for companionship. A woman who had learned to lead with softness without surrendering her power. We drove to dinner with the city lights reflecting in the windshield like scattered gold. And he kept glancing at me between conversations, not nervously, but like he was memorizing me, anchoring himself in the moment. Dinner was intimate and warm, one of those candle-lit places where the world melts away into velvet shadows. And I remember laughing at something he said, leaning back in my chair with my wine glass in hand, feeling so deeply rooted in who I was that I didn't once wonder if something big was going to happen. And that's when I realized the true power of feminine alignment. When you're living from your worth, you stop predicting outcomes. You stop performing for them. You stop gripping so tightly you choke the magic out of the moment. You simply are. And that being becomes irresistible. After dinner, he suggested a walk by the water, and I followed him outside. pulling my coat around my shoulders as the cool night air kissed my skin, and the city hummed around us like a living heartbeat. The path was quiet, lit by those old-world street lamps that make everything glow like a memory you haven't lived yet. And as we walked, our steps in sync, our hands brushing, linking, warm against the cold air, I felt this unfolding like something was stepping out of the unseen and into the present. We reached a spot where the water reflected the lights in long, shimmering ribbons. And he stopped walking. He turned toward me slowly, like he didn't want to break the spell. And when he said my name, it felt different weighted, intentional, almost sacred. He took my hands, holding them gently but firmly. And in his eyes, I saw a clarity I had never demanded from him, but had always held space for. He told me that loving me had changed him, that my boundaries had steadied him, that my softness had expanded him, and that my refusal to abandon myself had inspired him to rise into the man he wanted to be, not because I coerced him, but because being with a woman who loves with both openness and standards calls something noble forward in a man. He said he had been carrying something with him all evening, waiting for the right moment. And even then, I didn't jump ahead or assume. I simply breathed, grounded, present, letting the moment bloom in its own time. Then he stepped back, reached into his coat, and lowered himself to one knee under the halo of that street lamp. The city shimmering behind him, the water whispering beside us, and everything in me went still in the most beautiful way, not shocked, not breathless, but deeply, peacefully aligned. He opened the box with hands that trembled just slightly, not from fear, but from the magnitude of choosing someone with your whole heart. He told me he wanted me as his partner, his equal, his love, his forever, that he wanted to build a life with me that felt like the warmth we had created, the honesty we had nurtured, the future we had stepped into together. And as he spoke, I felt this wave move through me, not the frantic say yes pressure so many women feel, but the calm, powerful confirmation that every boundary I held, every standard I honored, every moment I chose myself had led me exactly here, to a proposal not born from fear of losing me, but from devotion to keeping me. I said yes with a slow, steady smile, not because I was surprised, but because I was ready. He stood, wrapped his arms around me, and kissed me with this beautiful combination of relief and certainty. And in that moment, the world around us blurred into insignificance. What mattered was the alignment, the authenticity, the intentional love we had built, not rushed, not forced, not bargained for, but chosen deliberately, matured patiently, honored fully. That's the part I want every woman listening to feel in her bones. The proposal wasn't the victory. The victory was every step of becoming the woman who didn't settle, didn't pressure, didn't collapse into neediness or performance. The woman who trusted her worth enough to let the wrong man fall away and the right man rise. A healthy, aligned proposal is not something you manipulate a man into, it's something you magnetize from a place of deep feminine truth. And if you're still here, if something in your chest is buzzing with recognition or awakening or relief or desire, then you need to subscribe, because this is the space where we turn feminine alignment into reality, where we cultivate the kind of power that doesn't chase, doesn't force, doesn't demand, it inspires. Comment "I needed this" if this moment lit something inside you. Because trust me, the version of you who honors her standards will never have to beg for a ring. She will simply stand, luxurious and grounded in her worth. And the right man will kneel willingly.